We had our own challenges early on today in the last 2 days, so hopefully we don't get sight of that again today. If you drop off, I won't take offense. If I disappear, don't take offense either. We should be back online quickly. We have a generator on standby. Right, so for those of you who don't know, the discussion today will be about the 4.7 release, which is out today. If you're on Facebook, you may have seen the post we did this morning. So today would have been a panel discussion. However, because of all the content we have to go through, it will just be myself. The session will be recorded, as you can see, and the recording itself will be available afterwards, probably towards the end of this week, for you to download. So I'm going to go through things quite quickly. If you want to have a look at something again, you're welcome to download it and have a look afterwards. We did say 90 minutes for the session. I'm going to try and do it in 60. I like to keep the recording short. If there's time at the end for questions, we'll allow that too. I'm going to be switching off the video shortly as well in case you have any bandwidth issues, so that should speed things up quite a bit. Otherwise, just I'll keep my eye on the screen, although I've got quite a few things to contend with here. It's 2 screens, 9 panels, and notes, which I had to prepare by candlelight last night. So for the people joining us from the UK, we've had some power grid issues in South Africa lately, so just bear with us. Right, so I'm just going to stop sharing the webcam. Hopefully, if you're having any bandwidth issues, the speed should now have improved. So the agenda will be the 4.7 release notes. Just a note to say that the release notes is not a training session, it's a general discussion. So even though it's not training, you will probably pick up what you need to know to apply this in your own environment. We have a mixed audience, so it's not just everyone from financial services or manufacturing. So the examples I use will be quite generic. Just please consider it in your own context. And I will also be going through some future plans, what we want to do, etc. And hopefully that will shed some light on where we're going with WorkPool itself. Right, so at the end there will also be a survey. It will take you 1 to 2 minutes to complete. Please do that. You also have a chance to put up comments of things you would like to see in WorkPool. So if you have any special requests, this would be an ideal time for you to tell us about that. Right, you'll see a questions/chat panel on your screen most likely as well. That's where you can post questions. So if you have anything to say, whatever you post there will only be visible to myself and to you. So no worry that the other people can see that. If there's time at the end, we will get to that. Right, so just looking at the notes. Good, I think I've covered everything. So if you want a copy of the release notes, that can be found on the WorkPool website. You just go to workpool.coza/releases or workpoolbns.com/releases. The release notes were uploaded last night, so you can download the copy. It's about 28 pages in total. Today will be the highlights only, so you're welcome to look at the detail in that. And if you want to copy it for training material, you're welcome to do that. For you to stay in the know, have a look at our frequently asked questions on the website, and remember to subscribe to our Quickie. If you're on the Quickie distribution list, you will get notified of any official events, tips and tricks, and important things you need to know. For social media links, WorkPool is on both Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, so please have a look and subscribe if you're not already. Most often the social media channels will be the first place that we publish information. So things like limited seating for webinars like this, it's important that you subscribe early and register so you can get access, and that will typically happen via the social media channels first. Right, okay, I can see the room is filling up quite quickly. However, we won't stop, so I'm just going to continue as per the plan. Every time we do a release, the top of the release notes section will have a summary of the changes in that specific release. This is to help you in planning and also for training considerations. You'll note that in 4.7, the major areas affected was communication, so that would be the emails and SMS or text messages. The process management side, and the WorkPool system administration. So system administration is also a collective heading for what we call cross-cutting concerns, things that go across the entire software. So things like the date control, file uploads, and all the attributes that you find on views and processes, those all fall under general and components. So that will be under the system administration section. And the other ones represent the modules, the main modules in WorkPool. So calendar I'm going to tackle first, but I won't be going through all of it. As I mentioned, all the details is in the release notes. Some interesting facts. I had a look yesterday, and we had two main projects going into the 4.7 release, and we've spent more than 1,600 man-hours in development alone. That's a whole 42 weeks of development, 150 plus hours on analysis. So as you can imagine, quite a lot of work, a lot to get through, a lot of testing, and thanks to the team for pulling it all together. Much of the work we did was in the back end, so there's not a lot of user interface issues that you can see the difference, but just know that a lot of time and effort went into making these changes. The idea today is to spend about 20 minutes on the email, then about 15 minutes on the process and the task management side, and then about 20 to 30 minutes on the major system-wide changes. So that would affect anyone irrespective of how you use WorkPool. I am aware that obviously everyone's using WorkPool in different ways. Not everyone is using, for example, email, or not everyone's using processes. Just take the time to sit back and relax, have a look and see what other people are doing. Obviously you can learn from that, and where you can apply that in your own environment, at least you get some first-hand knowledge in these webinars. Right, let's have a look at the notes. Yeah, there's a lot to cover. As I said, I'm going to go through it quite quickly, so bear with me. And yeah, welcome to post those questions. I'm not seeing any coming through at the moment, but you're welcome to drop those in, and when we get time at the end, I'll cover those. Starting with a calendar, not everyone's using the WorkPool calendar. That's mostly because in the past it wasn't integrated. As you know from version 4.7, WorkPool featured an integrated calendar, which means that if you send calendar invitations from WorkPool, other people using Outlook or Google can receive and acknowledge those as per a normal Outlook email client, for example, and vice versa. If they send you any emails, that can be imported in WorkPool directly. So we continued the work we did in 4.6. We basically improved some of the ways we work with emails and the calendar to make it as seamless as possible. You may recall from 4.6 that these buttons have appeared for you to import email events. You no longer have to first import an event. You can actually make these changes, accept, decline, and propose new time directly from the email side. So again, trying to make it as seamless as we can. We continue to add support for Office 365, Exchange, Outlook, as well as the Google changes. It is quite challenging. They often change, and they change frequently. For those of you who don't know, the way that it works is an industry standard, almost like a blueprint or an architectural plan, and all the vendors are supposed to subscribe to that and follow those rules. It is unfortunately sometimes open to interpretation, and some vendors like to add special features. So there isn't a benchmark where, or a single place you can go to do integration that works for everyone, and it's often by trial and error. So we welcome your feedback. When we can, we make those changes quite quickly. Remember, we use the same calendar, so it affects us at the same time, and we try to push it out as quickly as possible. If it's something big, we have to push it out in the next release. So yeah, just bear with us. Another important and interesting thing is that the way that WorkPool deals with the calendar will be different to your traditional standalone applications. Most calendars don't have to contend with the legal or risks and audit requirements that WorkPool does, for example. So where a typical calendar app can allow you to make changes, delete events, and affect changes to that without any consequences or notes, WorkPool can't allow that, because you are relying on WorkPool as your system to keep track of all your activities. Same with like a recurring event. If you have 52 of them, let's say one meeting per week every week, we can't just allow you to, by accident, delete all 52 meetings when you actually had recordings and information attached to historic ones. So in WorkPool, we treat a calendar event pretty much like an activity, and for that reason, it's under audit control. We do try to make it as seamless as possible and to hide the complexity from you, but bear in mind that you get a lot of benefits from using the WorkPool tool, and with that comes the responsibility to maintain the data. Right. So I'm not going to spend any time on the calendar after that. Getting down to the email, the bulk of the changes we did in 4.7 and building onto some of the work in 4.6 was for the email section in WorkPool. As you know, email volumes just increase despite all the efforts and work we do, and to make it as seamless as possible and the powerful tools we place in your hands. You know, the volumes are increasing, and you have to do more and receive and send more communications throughout your operations. So that's something that the server has to cope with, and keep in mind that the more volume you push through it, the bigger the resources requirements on your server. Obviously, more and more people are going mobile and transacting via mobile, so it's important that you have a way to bring that communication into WorkPool in a seamless way. More and more people are collaborating online, even just sending quick emails from your phone. That plays an important part in your audit trail. Cloud adoption's been great. For some people that's a good thing, for some people that's a bad thing. In the corporate space, that's quite a nightmare for people bringing their own devices and information leaking out. For us, it's been a good thing. ESCOM as well has caused many of our clients to actually go into the cloud, where it's the WorkPool server is in a controlled environment, so these power cuts don't affect them, and as long as you have a connection to the internet, which most laptops and devices have these days, you can continue working. I'd say about 9, I think, out of 10 people lately go onto the cloud directly. So it's only the bigger corporates, or when there's specific requirements, when they actually have their own WorkPool server or for development purposes. Yeah, a major thing for us in planning has been the responsibilities and risks around the various acts. POPI, as you know, albeit not here yet, is only becoming more and more important, and it's critical that you look at that as far as planning your information and controls in the business. The PIA Act, ECT Act, all of these have certain consequences to the way that you work. So for WorkPool, for POPI, we've been handling that in many different ways. Access to data in your directory. Most clients are using processes to, for example, collect information from the directory as and when required, update entries, so that they can restrict access to information, but still allow the company to run in a productive and efficient manner. So a lot of work done on that in planning specifically, and some things coming up in the near future. The landscape also keeps on changing, more and more providers. I mean, a couple of years ago, if you said, let's build a BlackBerry app, everyone would have been happy. Clearly, that would have been a bad thing if you did. So you can't invest in one specific platform or device or browser. You have to accommodate and consider more. There are just so many devices and connectivity issues. The impact of these power cuts on clients is quite significant. So there are just so many things to contend with, and it's no longer a 0 and 1 environment where you can plan exactly. Often things are outside of your control, our control, and you have to make the best of that. A major focus for us is always to, whatever we do in WorkPool, to make it practical. There's no point in us adding a new feature or including emails when it's going to take you 7-8 clicks to link something or add it into your audit trail. So our goal is always to empower, not enslave. You have requirements, you have to document your activities. We try to do it in a practical way. So your feedback on that is highly appreciated. Please let us know. We take constructive criticism, and we always try to work it in, even though we can't always do it immediately. Yeah, and obviously as things change, there's a rise in expectations and requirements, and with that comes an increase in resources and complexity. You'll note that 1,600 hours we've spent, not a lot goes onto the front end, but there's a lot of work that goes in on the back end for us to do our planning and make sure that we do things in a way that it can last and go beyond any issues that may pop up. And also we found that more and more companies and clients are systemizing their business, looking at Poppy. It's often a good reason, but in general, to manage the risks and the workload in a business, more and more people are becoming process driven. Right, so while everyone's still fresh, I'm going to just give you some background on the WorkPool side of what we've done on the email. In the past, the WorkPool server and all the various components ran in one server, so your email sending, receiving, all of that was in one place. What we've done with this 4.7 is separate the code into a separate environment. Currently it's all running on the same server still, but our goal will be to separate this completely. There are many reasons for it and many benefits. Firstly, to give the email side, which is such a big component for most people, a bit of independence. We want to allow you to control the services around sending and receiving yourself. When the power drops, when the mail server goes down, whatever the reason may be, we don't want you to have to phone us. We want to give you the tools to stop and start things and accommodate this environmental issues we're having. So we've done that in this release. Also to better manage volumes. For people who have only 4, 5, 6, 20 mailboxes, it's not a big deal, but when you go from 20, 30, 40, 50 or 100 mailboxes, there's a lot of work that takes place on the server, and if there's emails to be downloaded, you can imagine the queue and the work involved to process all of that is quite a bit. So 4.7 now allows for concurrent connections and multi-threading, as we call it. So we're actually downloading mailboxes, multiple mailboxes at the same time, so it speeds up quite a bit. Another big reason for doing it this way is to add the mobile integration that we're planning for WorkPool. Our goal will be to allow you to leverage your existing email and calendar apps on your smartphone. So we will probably not be giving you another separate WorkPool app for emails and calendar. There may be a separate app for tasks and other things, but we would want you to use your existing application or app and then connect that to WorkPool. Same with the tablet and the desktop, that you have ubiquitous or seamless access from any device. And with that obviously would include your quick messages or emails that you send and receive on the phone. Right, also with these changes there's been a requirement for a lot more caching. People expect information to be available much faster, and to do that you have to cache a lot more. So the resource requirements on the servers go up, but we do try to manage that we don't pass that on to you in ways of having to upgrade hardware every time we bring out a new release. So at this point it's not a requirement, but obviously depending on the number of mailboxes and things you have happening on that server, you may need to increase the memory or CPU on that server. Right. So that wraps up the major backend changes. Just to give you an idea of what we're doing there, I'll go into demos shortly. We've also reviewed and finalized the plans around email access rules for people sending and receiving emails in WorkPool. You know that there's many ways of sharing emails and filing them and linking them to tasks and so on. So we're allowing for more fine-grained control going forwards and linking audit trail to that, so that you can control exactly who sees what on the emails. Right, so getting to some actual screens. The WorkPool email section, as I mentioned, we've prepared and put 2 new service panels in for you. So as a WorkPool email administrator, you can access these from the email administration side. You'll note an email message sending service and an email message downloading service that's appeared. So these will allow you to stop and start the services yourself without having to contact us when there is a problem. Something important to know is that in the past, mailboxes would download consecutively, so one by one. that meant that if one mailbox had an issue or caused some kind of delay, everyone had to wait for that issue to be resolved, which often caused quite long delays. Since 4.7, these mail downloads are happening consecutively, so it speeds things up quite a bit, and one mailbox having an issue won't affect the other mailboxes unless obviously it's a connection problem to the mail server. We will now pop an email into your inbox because that's what you're monitoring and where you will be looking to receive new emails. The moment there is a problem, it will give you a message to tell you what to do and what the cause of the problem was. So looking at the email control panel for sending, many of you use WorkPool to send out bulk communications to clients, so that could be for newsletters, general communication, and even targeted personalized email messages. In the past, if you sent out an email, especially bulk emails, you may be loading up 1,000 emails in the queue, and WorkPool would then start sending that out immediately. You could set the buffer, so that's moved from the old admin section onto this panel, where you can now control the maximum number of communications that you send out per hour. So these are bulk communications, newsletters, notifications, etc. And the reason we did that is because many mail servers are either struggling to cope with getting 1,000 messages at the same time, or having to buffer that over time to prevent people from abusing it for spam. So you can now control from the WorkPool side how many emails you push through onto the mail server from here. You can also track the status of current emails, and you can see how many are waiting to send. A normal and audit message would be a normal one that you've composed and sent out. An audit one is a new task notification, task completed notification, any type of internal notification. Bulk would be one sent out via the report or a group. And then SMS, if you have an email to SMS service, excuse me, that would appear here, and you can track how many are currently sending. This is quite a powerful engine, so bear in mind that if it sends out 10 emails simultaneously, and if you have emails queued up, it takes about 1 second to send an email, so that's 10 per second. It adds up quite quickly at 600 per minute and 36,000 emails per hour. So as I say, with great power comes great responsibility. Be careful, it's a powerful tool, and you can track and control things using the buffer. And the nice thing is you can stop and start the service directly from here. So if there is a problem, you can click on the stop service. If there was a power cut, you can just click on restart, and that will then re-establish the connection to the mail server for you. So typical South African tools we had to build in to compensate for our environment. But it makes it more powerful and more robust. On the bottom section, you can see a list of the last 100 emails that went out. As an administrator, you cannot see the contents of the email, only the from address, so who is sending it, and the subject. So that's helping you with finding any problems or issues that may pop up. If there's an error, it will appear, there's a red icon that will appear in the status column, and you can hover over that to see what the error is. Right, so stop and start, restart, all of these things you can do as a system admin directly from the panel. The downloading is pretty much the same. We've given you a single bird's eye view of all the mailboxes configured on the system. Here too, you can stop and start everything in the queue with one button. And as an admin, you can actually stop and start individual mailboxes by clicking on the icons in the status column. Currently, there's a couple of green ones and one red one. So by clicking on these icons, that will stop and start individual mailboxes for you. Why do we do this? Well, the stop service specifically is quite useful if you're doing data take-on, data imports, synchronization, or backups. You can, in one place, stop all the mailboxes from downloading, which means it's safe to do a backup, do an import, and if something goes wrong, you can still restore your backup without losing any information. If you don't stop your emails from importing, obviously if you restore a backup, then you will lose all the emails that you imported in between the backup being made and your restore time. So please factor that into your plans if you do data take-ons. you now have the tool to manage this. So please stop those mailboxes from downloading. Something that you do need to know as a normal user, because the email code is running separate to the main WorkPool server, you now have to use your dashboard almost like a remote control. In the past, you can go in, stop and start things and make changes over here. Now you first have to click on the stop downloading button. So that notifies the server to stop downloading your email, and you can then make changes. When you're done, these buttons will turn blue. You can click on save, and that will then continue your mailbox downloads. Okay, so it's slightly different, and it will affect all the users. So if you're a WorkPool champion or trainer, please bear that in mind, because you will have to help people out with that when something goes wrong. Right, so let's do a quick demo. I'm just going to jump over to WorkPool. Now the screen refresh rate may be a bit slow, so I'll be going through the screens fairly slow. Having a look at my mailbox over here, here is an example of a mailbox that stopped due to an error. As I said, we had power cuts earlier on, so here's an example of what a mailbox notification will look like. You can open that up and it will tell you that this was disconnected due to connectivity. When you're done, you can just delete that, but the goal will be for you to go onto your mailboxes, and then whichever one is running, and as I said, use the stop downloading button to send a message to the back end. Now, we obviously have a lot of people using WorkPool to send and receive emails. In the past, when you composed an email, it would take whatever task you were on, either starting a new email, replying, forwarding, etc., and then link that automatically to the task. That was okay in most cases, but obviously very often you have multiple tasks, or you're actually wanting to refer to another task. So we've put a new component in on the screen to allow you to browse and then link on demand new tasks, and also unlink them if you don't need them anymore. So I can say, click on that one, obtain necessary documents, link to the client take-on, and you can browse and link more items. The control works as follows. You can either type in a task number, so I can press 1, enter, and it pops in with the task. The list over here mirrors the active tasks in the folder at the top. So Candy Logan, currently there's 2 tasks in there, and these are both listed in the control, the active icon being this one over here. So on that note, you can use the other icons to browse the last 15 tasks, for example, that you were working on. Generally, that gives you the task that you're looking for. The one mirrors your one-day view, so if you have tasks due today or next action today, that will appear in the list over here. All of these lists are limited to 100. So if you click on all tasks and you have more than 100 tasks, this list probably is not the best one to use, and it will only show up to 100 or tell you that there's too many tasks. It cannot display that. This last one over here is manage resources. So that's the inverse of all your tasks. It's all the tasks you've assigned to other people. So you just click on the task number, and that will then link this email to those tasks. You can also see that next actions that are currently in the past, in other words, they've expired, will have a red background. That's a prompt for you to update that. Now, I know that for some people that's a contentious issue. Not everyone's using next action dates for follow-ups. It's not as important to everyone as it is to us. We have now put a property in for you to disable that if you don't want to enforce the rule. So you can go to the task administration side, and then you can go to the task properties, which is this one over here, and you'll note a new property it says only allow future next action dates on tasks when sending emails. You can now uncheck that, and then the system will not force you to set the next action date when you're sending emails. We obviously recommend that you do set your next actions and you get into that habit because it can only add value to you in the past. Going forward. But for some people who don't use it, you can now disable that feature. Unlinking tasks, you just click on the X, it takes it away. And if it's a task that is not assigned to you or not active, you'll note it will display the owner and the resource, so you know who's involved. And obviously you can't set the next action date on tasks that don't belong to you. So another feature we've put in is if you click on the more at the top, there's a billable flag. If you click that, you'll note on the top right hand corner, marked as billable will appear. So for people who bill pretty much per minute or for all their time, this is a way for you to keep track of the emails that you send as well. Lastly, we've changed this time taken control. Again, not many people, or let me rather say most people, log their time, but for those who don't, you can use this control to click on and it auto-calculates your time. We did find that if you work on a certain screen for a long time, or you go and edit a draft like I've done now, there's often missed time because you forget to update this value. So what happens now is if I say save as draft, WorkPool will pick up that I'm about to navigate away from the screen, and it will tell me, hey, you've spent 4 minutes here. Would you like to add the 4 minutes or ignore it and cancel to go back? So I can say add 4 minutes, and that then gets saved on the task before it gets submitted to the server. Right, so a few small things, but quite useful. For mobile users, you can obviously hide away that list by using this button on the left-hand side. Okay, another big thing that will help people quite a bit is the email template management. In the past, we did not have a hierarchy for email templates, so people ended up prefixing all the templates that they use when either creating emails or email snippets with the words or the department or the group that they belong to. In this version of WorkPool, you actually have permission groups, and you can control who gets access to what. So let's have a look at WorkPool. It's located under the directory administration screen. The change affects both text messages and email templates because they're both categorized as messages and require their own message templates. All the email templates will now have a template group, and these groups you can configure under the Manage Email Templates group section. And over here you can have a look, and it will show you all the templates grouped together under that group. Okay, so we found that there's a very close correlation between the resource groups for tasks and the message template groups. So when you're doing a certain amount of work and in the same department, same team, the message templates that you get access to would often mirror that. So when you are configuring template groups, the list that you see over here actually belong to the resource groups that you've set up in the system. So how that works is when you go to an email and you compose a new email, you can access your message templates from the button over here. So clicking on that creates an email template manager. This was in 4.6. What we've done is we've improved it so you can also do searching. Many people have hundreds of email templates, and it often takes a while to get to it, or you don't know exactly which one. So by typing in bank, you can now get access to the template, preview it, and then choose to either replace the email you've got or insert the content at that point. The template manager will also honor any access restrictions. So the list over here only gets populated based on the access you've got, and the expressions over here will only be resolved assuming that you have access to that. What happened in the past was if an administrator didn't take care, they could create an email template that could allow people to gain access to information on directory views that were restricted. So the new template manager considers that, and also with the permission groups, you have a lot more fine-grained control on how you implement that. Yeah, so have a look at that. Update your existing templates so that you have a way of enforcing that and don't give access to people without meaning to. Right. As a side note, the text messages, people in the past said that they can't delete mobile numbers after they sent messages, and especially if it's an incorrect or old number. That was annoying. What we've done now is in this version of WorkPool, you can delete the mobile numbers after you've used them. The reason we didn't do this in the past is because the mobile number was actually part of the message that we recorded. So if you clicked over here on the mobile number and you sent a message or registered a new number, you could not delete it because that number formed part of the message. What we've done in 4.7 is separate the two, so we still record the number. It's still in there, you can't change it, but the registered number you can now change by going onto the entry and then clicking on the menu at the top, going down to communications, and the mobile numbers registered against that can now be removed, which is not an option before. Another important change, especially for people who synchronize with other systems like CRM or extra databases, financial systems, etc. We now have an indicator on the views to tell you that the attributes that you're looking at are linked in some way, either to a process or some other system. So having a look at this one, this business view, it will tell you that at least the trading name, registered legal name, phone numbers are all linked in some way to a separate process. Let's have a look. Go to the edit view. And now you can see some little triangles popping up. It will tell you that this trading name is linked to the data import business. So why do we do that? Because people would sometimes go into views, update values, not knowing that tonight when the sync takes place, that value will be overwritten. So clearly you're wasting your time if you're adding something that gets overwritten. The same applies to processes. If you're having a FICA process that's currently running, mostly these views are locked down, so you can't edit them without a process. You can go into the view properties, and it will show you, if you hover your mouse over it, that this is actually used by the client take on process with 3 links with write, read, write access to that process. So again, it allows you to stop losing information or making mistakes or overwriting each other content when you're working in a collaborative environment. All of the changes you do obviously still under the audit notes will be recorded there, but this is a good way to make you aware in the collaborative environment where things can change and why they're changing. If you have your WorkPool set up and your database shared to, for example, talk to a website, it's important that you don't tweak something here and change it and end up breaking some other system as a result. So these visual indicators help quite a lot to prevent mistakes. Right, so while I'm on the screen, another feature people don't always know about or is underutilized, we've changed a little bit. Whenever you go to any entry and you click on relationships, a relationship screen will appear. So this, let's go to one with some content. That's it over here. Okay, so this one is an example of a typical relationship screen where relationships have been documented in the system. What we do is we go throughout the entire database when you access the screen and try to paint you a picture of the significance of this WorkPool PTY as far as relating to other entities in the database. So you can see from here if it belongs to another entry. You can also access all the, or have a look at all the entries on the same view. So if this was a WorkPool group of companies, then WorkPool would be a member of that, and all of these would be siblings, so on the same level as WorkPool. Any child entries would be listed over here, so that could be people, it could be even further sub-companies, etc. The nice thing is you can now update and set it from the screen. In the past, this was a read-only screen. Now it's functional. You can either remove and update relationships from here, and you can even add links to existing ones or even add new ones on the fly. So adding on a whole family, for example, this one is quite nice and easy because you can get it from one screen. Group memberships, same story. Groups, obviously in WorkPool, is used for like an informal collection of entries. So if you have a golf day that you're planning or some kind of forum or activity that's going to happen, and then you don't need to store it again afterwards, you can create a group, and WorkPool allows you to add this entry, WorkPool PTY, to the groups that you select and search for over here. Excuse me. So that's the entry relationships. However, looking down over here, it's quite powerful that WorkPool can also go and look at any other place on any other view that this WorkPool PTY is referenced. So if you have a VIP client who gives you a lot of business, or you keep track of clients' IT providers, or even contact people at insurance companies, etc., any place where you link this entry to will appear in this list under linked to views. So it will show you the name of the entry, the attribute name, so it's referred by, and on what view it was stored. And from here you can click and access that directly. So if you're a financial services company and you keep track of directors, or like doing company secretarial work, and or just in general contact people, whenever someone resigns or you add on a new person, you can look at the impact of that by looking at the various relationships. Same for processes. Imagine this was a person view, and if you keep track of all your training that you do, all your training courses and things would pop up under the link to processes. So as you do your client take-on, or pretty much anything that you run through a process and you link to this WorkPool entity, you can access directly from here by clicking on the task link. For those of you who also don't know, the item section also allows you to link a supplier or manufacturer, and if this entity is linked in any way, it will appear in the list as well. So play around with that, have a look, and see what this relationship screen can do for you. Okay. So one of the big things we've done that affects the entire system is this thing called cascading options. Sponsored by one of our WorkPool clients. It's something a lot of you have been asking for, and it pretty much, if you look at the existing WorkPool screens, you may remember that you have two types of option attributes. The one is a single select, where you get a drop-down box and you can choose only one value, and you get a multi-select one where you get a menu of options and you can choose one or more than one item in the list. On the view definitions, so if you're adding your own view definitions, those would come from the option lists over here, and in the past you only had these two options. If you're designing processes, then those would link up to the attributes link that you have on your designer, or the visual designer if you're building your own processes, under the attributes button over here. So you can access these new cascading options by clicking on the option buttons provided. So yeah, for most people the single select was something like a status, and the multi-select would be a menu of services. An example of the single select before version 4.7, what we found is there's a lot of duplication in the list, or repetition of words like financial services, to make it more unique, or to let it stand out that which service you are referring to. Or you often had issues where people have a list like a referral source and then choose the wrong value because they didn't look through the entire list and there was something more appropriate later on. So if someone got referred in through online advertising, someone will link Google Ads because they don't know there's an online advertising link further down below. On the left-hand side, people fake groups by prefixing values over here. After the change, we now allow you to build a structure, a hierarchy, And as you make choices, those will cascade down, and you have more choices below that. So in the single select, you can now group together items that belong together under a heading. So these are just two typical examples. Let's have a look on WorkPool, what that would look like. So if we go to, let's say, Albert Bean Consultants over here, we can click to add a new view, and let's go for customer profile. This represents or looks very similar to the old single select drop-down. You'll note that there's a plus next to some of the items. If I click on the plus, a new drop-down will appear underneath it. So you can continue down the list for as many levels as you have until you choose the right one. Once you've done that, it locks in and you get a panel over here. To change it, you just click on the panel again, and you can then navigate and go in a different direction to make those changes. So pretty seamless and hopefully easy to understand for the people. When we look at the multi-select before, same story. You had a single box where you had to list all of these various options, and the other struggling issue was that sometimes you ran out of space because you had management repeated 4 times, and then the project admin would be cut off to say only projects, and you couldn't see what was on the right hand side. We obviously not everyone in the same amount of experience, so also things could slip in by accident where people make a selection at the top and then forget to hold down their shift or control key, and then by accident deselect values when they select new values. So navigating the multi-select in the past, if you have a big list, meant there was a lot of chance for someone making a mistake. So we've changed that now that you can actually have a look at the whole list as a tree and group them together. Again, there's no limit to the number of levels you can go down, so it's up to you to configure it. And WorkPool will automatically update those screens as you add new options. So having a look at that on the screen, click on Services, and you can now navigate all the options by looking at the tree over here. And you can choose 1, 2, 3, 4, backups, etc. Click on Save. And this one looks a little bit different in that it shows you the entire tree that you've made, with the bold ones being selected and the ones that are not bold not selected, but a parent to one of these items. Okay, so hopefully that's more readable and will prevent people from choosing the wrong option. Let's have a look at the notes. These obviously link up to the processes. I don't really have a lot of time left to show that to you, but if you go and say I'm doing a client take-on and type in any client name over there, click on Save, let's go. As you know, on the tasks you can bring in attributes, and here as well we've built in the LinkedIn indicator. So it will show you that this value is linked to a view, which means if you make any changes, it will propagate through. Having a look at this capital banking entry, at the moment you can see that this is a business, but we don't have any profile view linked to it. So if I go back here and I say this client take-on, let's say it's company, and let's set all the various industries. Well, let's go for one, agriculture. Click on Update and submit details. If I go back to my entry view and I do a refresh, you'll note that the customer profile view has now appeared. So as I said, many clients are using processes to ensure that information gets updated by the right people at the right time when there's an audit trail around it, so they can take away the permissions on the views themselves. Okay, so wrapping up the directory side, these cascading options affected quite a bit in the system, again, which is why we had to put a lot of time and effort into it. If you're doing any imports or exports into WorkPool, we now support the cascading options there as well. For details, please have a look at the release notes. If you're exporting and importing processes and view definitions, please remember that if you're importing and exporting from another environment, the versions must match. So it doesn't help that you're designing and building in one version and you're exporting it there with new features into your old production environment. So make sure you keep them in sync. The synchronization, obviously anything that's timed happening at night at the moment will continue to work. All of the existing options, both on processes and views, will work as it did before after you install 4.7. Just make sure that when you add new options that you also update any synchronization or reports that may be dependent on that. Okay, so processes, I'm not going to go into too much there except to say that the same features you have on the directory is also available on the processes. For many of you, you are designing processes, so that makes it quite nice. We spent, I think, about 60 hours on performance improvements. We have a lot of clients with literally millions of tasks potentially in the database due to the environment driven through processes completely. So for them, they will see quite a few performance improvements. The important thing to consider, though, is that if you have any custom screens, custom reports, or special integration to other systems, that you must update that while doing the upgrade. Okay, so on the task connectivity side, again, something that most people would be affected by. Let's have a look at WorkPool. One of the changes is the floating panel at the top. You'll note as I scroll down to the task, the panel at the top will always stay visible with the task number. The action panel as well. So many people asked for this feature because as they're working on the task, they want to be able to see the task number, the current status and importance. The system admins used to have a button at the top to hijack ownership. That has now changed and it's moved to the right-hand side. So these are hyperlinks. You can actually click on the name, John Doe, and a resource component will appear where you can change the ownership of the task, say OK, and that's done with the audit note added at the same time. Okay, so it's more seamless, easier to do, and the same controls are in place. Let's just change it back to John Doe. The same applies to the assigned to. So if you want to reassign a task, you can now quite quickly and easily do this by clicking on the assign to link at the top. For people using resource groups, they're not just in processes, people use it for tracking and managing work internally. We've also made some changes. Resource groups, if you're assigning it to a resource group, will now be in blue, so you can visibly see when it's assigned to a group versus a person. And a panel will appear popping up with more information as to who is responsible for the work in that group. It does happen that people come and go, or for some reason a resource group gets deactivated. So we improved on it to let you know and turn the background red or gray depending on what is happening with the resource group. And then you can track and fix that so to ensure that people don't drop the ball and tasks get done. On processes specifically, that's quite important because the process will be stuck if you don't attend to that. A gray background means that that's currently inactive, so no one is attending to that task at the moment. On the tasks themselves, we've put the custom list screen component in on 4.6. We've also changed this to add it onto the edit screen. So you'll note on the edit screen, the component that you use to update your custom lists can now be triggered from the edit screen and also from the add task screen. So these were done slightly differently in the past, but they're now visible and work in the same way. So custom lists are great for keeping track of specific tasks or just adding notes so you can go back to them later on. Let's have a look. Obviously, in a collaborative environment, it's important that you can reassign work from time to time. So even that we've changed a little bit. You can go onto your workflow or manage workflow when you're managing workflows for others. And if you click and drag, you now have an reassign tasks, and transfer tasks option. The assumption is that you are the owner of these tasks, or else you will not be able to transfer or reassign them. Okay, and if you do that, you can even add a note in bulk. Excuse me. So if someone goes on leave, this is a nice, easy way to transfer things to them and then take it back afterwards. Right, we're still good for time, and I'm going to go over to the last. Let's check that I've done everything. Yep, looks good. So for those of you who've been using WorkPool for a while, you should know the file upload component quite well. Whenever you saw a button like the one listed over here at the bottom, you click on that and you get a panel that would give you 4 options to upload files. And we initially did this as a pop-up, but due to browser changes, pop-ups are no longer the preferred way of doing this. We've also had browsers, I think, coming to the party a bit. Our struggle is always that we have to cater for all the browsers, and they all change in different ways at different times. So when you implement something, it's often the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. It doesn't help that you have a new feature in Chrome and Firefox doesn't support it, or Internet Explorer does some kind of seamless integration and then the other browsers don't support it. So we always have to consider what the common denominators are and then implement it according to that, and at the same time not break any security rules that may impact upon what you're doing. So in 4.7 we completely replaced the file upload section. So this literally affects the entire spectrum of tasks, emails, files, items, all of it. We hope it's easier to use, and there's a couple of quite nice and cool features. So if I go to my task, let's have a look. Most people work on an activity, adding activities. You now have 2 icons. You have the traditional file upload and then also more documents. Now, probably about 95% of the time when people wanted to attach a document, they would click on the button and choose the first option, which is upload a file. So what we do now is the moment you click on this, it will open up the file dialog by default. So there's no need for you to go into the pop-up, click on the browse button to get to the screen. You can just make your selection, click on open, and it will then upload it immediately. Another cool feature is that you can actually do multiple uploads at the same time. That wasn't possible in the past, but the browsers have caught up. So you can now, for example, click 3 files, click on open, and WorkPool uploads all 3 files for you at the same time. Okay, so that's quite a big time saver. Works as well on emails. So removing them, you just click on the X and they're gone. So hopefully that's a big time saver. Another great one is the new drag and drop feature in WorkPool. So what that allows you to do is you can now select multiple files from some kind of folder, and then you can click, hold down your mouse, and the moment you drag it onto the WorkPool screen, you'll note that a little icon appears with an upload arrow, and if you drop those files on the panel, the same thing will happen. WorkPool will upload those files for you automatically, and it only makes a copy, so you're not going to lose the files on your desktop or whatever environment it's on, but the upload is quite seamless, and you may have seen, depending on the frame rate of the screen, it actually gives you an upload status, so you can keep track of big files and see what their current status is. Okay, so that's quite a cool one. We hope that you make use of that, and for people behind a PC, that's very useful. Another change, we obviously could not do away with the features you had under the other options. So whenever you click on the More Documents link, either on an email or task or activity, you'll note a pop-up panel will appear with 3 or less options. Now this panel is smart enough to know where it's being called from, which means if you're on a process and the process requirement is that you must upload a file, it will not show you the link or the files tabs. You can only, for example, link related documents which have already been uploaded, or you must use the attached file link. So this one is smarter. It also factors in, excuse me, security and access. So if there are documents linked to views, you will only be able to access the ones accessible to you. For those of you who have used this feature in the past, it could also show you any documents linked to the task or tasks that this email may be linked to. And we now even enforce permissions on that fine-grained level to say that you also can't gain access to those documents if you don't even have access to the task. So it's quite safe to correspond internally without fear of those documents getting out. So the way it works, you click on the button over here, and as you click, you'll note in the background the documents are attached automatically. If you're sending an email out to a client and it's a brochure or standard contract agreement, the file section, you can now do a search. So if I want to send out our bank details, you can just type in the word bank, and it will filter all the values and show you only the banking details document. Clicking on that again will attach it for you as well. For other links or URLs, you can use the last one. So in most cases though, you will want to either attach new documents, link related documents, or else search the file section to get a specific contract or agreement. Right, so hopefully that also saves you a lot of time and effort. One of the major benefits of doing it this way and launching the file upload by default is that the smart devices can actually now play a part, and whenever you click on that button in WorkPool on a phone or a tablet, it will launch the multimedia panel for you, which means you can now take photos, attach voice recordings, whatever you have on your device directly onto WorkPool. In the past, you had to work around this by first clicking on the upload link, browsing, finding it in the gallery, uploading it, and then saving it. So this single click allows you to link it over there, which is obviously much faster. Do keep in mind though that bandwidth issues could apply. So if you, like my phone, every photo is about 4 meg. So if you don't have some kind of plan that allows for that, or not on Wi-Fi, consider what you attach, because it may take a lot of your bandwidth as well. Something that people often ask us just while we're on the screen is how to quickly insert images on an email. So if you don't know, you can right-click on any part of an HTML email, say insert image, and the same arrow up button will appear over here. So I can say, let's have a look and attach this button, this picture. It will then upload that for me, so it could have been a photo that I'm taking, and I can then say insert image, and that gets embedded at the place that I want it to be in my email. So it's not a lot of work and fairly easy to insert images in your HTML content. Right, so that being about 60 minutes, so we're just a little bit over time. Big thanks to the WorkPool team for bringing things together. As I said, these are the highlights only. So obviously there's a lot more information that you can find in the release notes. So I do recommend you have a look at them. It's good to have a look at that anyway, and when you're a WorkPool champion, you have to give feedback to the other people too. Before we exit, I'm going to check the questions out shortly. At the end, there will be a quick survey. It will pop up automatically when I end the seminar, so please don't leave before then. It may also send you an email if you didn't complete it. It's critical that you give us the feedback, because some of it will actually affect the development directly, so we really want you to let us know. A reminder that the release notes can be downloaded on the releases section. If you want to schedule an upgrade, it's quite busy at the moment. We've had a lot of requests and people in the queue already. Just pop us an email to support@WorkPool. And then good news for today only, so 24 hours only, we will give the first 5 people to go onto our Facebook page and like the post that we did this morning to tell you about the new release. And if you can get one of your colleagues to like it as well, you'll qualify for a complimentary server update to the value of 450 Rand. So bear that in mind. Go there if you want to benefit from this. It will be for 24 hours only, so I recommend you do that quite quickly. Right, so thank you for attending. That's about what I wanted to go through. I'm going to stop the recording now, so we just don't go into all the discussion or questions afterwards. And yeah, we will make this recording available on our website later on in the week. So in case you had to dip out, maybe you got lost somewhere, I see the attendance is still pretty high, then at least you can get access to it and you can pass it on to the other people in your team. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you again.